This is the Pete Wong Podcast, sharing the things that I love with those that I love. I've always wanted to talk about the things that I care about in life. People have told me time after time, why don't you just share more of you? And with that, let's go. Well, welcome to this week's The Pete Wong Podcast. The last time I did a recording, an episode, was probably over a month ago. There's been a couple of different things that have been happening that resulted in me not being able to record, but I started a new position now, the after school coordinator at Century College and through the TRIO ETS program. And so I'm working with middle schoolers, helping the after school program and helping develop classes and teaching them and mentoring college students. I caught a cold in early December. That's never fun for anyone. And that's actually what I'm going to be talking about here today. But here we are, and decided to do this live because I wanted the information to get out there a lot sooner. And also just hopefully create some dialogue around this topic. So first of all, I just want to say Happy New Year, Happy 2022, 2022. It's a kind of a cool number, just looking at it on paper, written. It's kind of neat. Recently, I was part of this Facebook group, and one of the questions that they asked is, what are your goals for 2022? Normally, around this time, I would feel really excited about the new year and look forward to a bunch of things and just like uber positive. Lately, I've been struggling. Just to be totally transparent here, as we do on the Pete Wong Podcast, I've been feeling not my usual smiling, positive personality, and I've been accepting and being okay with that. One of the things that I've been learning to practice more is as human beings, we have so many different attributes that make us who we are. We sometimes neglect our emotions and our feelings that are just as important as the next one. I think it gets a little tricky because if you're too much of one thing, like let's say you're angry all the time, you have to consider what that means and where that's coming from. At the same time, I don't think it's realistic to be, I'm just trying to get comfortable here. I didn't realize that turning my body like that would be not very comfortable. Let's adjust this, actually. I just blocked this camera's. Sorry about that. I just trying to get the best audio for you listeners, you lovely listeners. So we're talking about the different emotions and feelings and attributes that we have as human beings. So at the same time, if you're always happy, I don't think that's realistic. I used to have a coworker of mine. He'd come in and he's a very positive person, and he'd tell everybody, "Hey, you should be happy. Hey, why aren't you happy? You should be happy." And then he'd list out a bunch of things, reasons why one should be happy. Because I knew him, that's one of the things I loved about him, that he would always come in with positive energy. He was just excited for life. As I researched more, learned more, talked to more people, learned about how mental health is, how our emotions, really affect our perception of the world, how our mental health affects the world, and how we perceive it. I really started thinking it's nice that this person is encouraging people to be happy, but you can't just force someone to be happy. It has to come from a genuine place. At the same time, if someone is angry, you can't just tell that person to not be angry. I mean, you can, but I think there's more work that needs to be done. I've been feeling this more skeptical, negativity, not very motivated, a bit lost, a bit jealous, not being very mindful or respectful of others. And, I don't I don't feel like that's really me, and I don't, it's tricky because here I am talking about embracing all our emotions and our attributes. So I'm still trying to figure out how that works. But I just know myself that when I'm more positive, when I'm hopeful, when I'm feeling inspired, when I feel like I literally can take on the world and I feel full of joy and love and affection and compassion and empathy, I feel like that's where I thrive. But this thing that I've been feeling lately, I've also been learning to just sit with it. A couple years ago, when some close people in my life were passing away and getting ill, and then some of them eventually passing away, I learned the value also from my mentor. Just straight up teaching me that sometimes you just have to sit with what you're feeling. That's pretty much what I've been doing as I started thinking about this episode. It's like a lot of my episodes. I always have something to say. It's just it doesn't always feel natural, like the right timing to say it, or I feel like, wow, it's a lot of work to put this together, and it just feels overwhelming. But today, for some reason, I finally got the spark to just put the equipment together and let's do this, and that's where we are. Because I feel an urgency to talk about this. In early December, I had what I thought was a cold. I apologize if this is going to be a little uncomfortable, or talking about illness and talking about sickness, having a cold and the symptoms. Putting advisory out there that this episode will be talking about a little bit about COVID. We'll be talking about illnesses. And just from my perspective, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. Please do not take what I am sharing as written prescription for anything. I'm just sharing the experience that I've had recently. So in December, I started feeling symptoms of a cold. To be honest, like when you blow your nose and it's the gross kind, it's the colorful kind. It was like not stopping. Itchy throat, sore throat, some achiness, coughing, drowsiness, a little exhaustion. Around just before the holidays, I started feeling better. And then I started to feel like maybe this is more than a cold, but I wasn't sure. I hadn't gotten my booster shot yet, so I decided to go ahead and get my booster shot. Got my booster shot the Wednesday before Christmas Eve. I know there's something about, whether or not you should be getting the vaccine shot or the booster shot when you're not feeling well. I was feeling better, so I thought that would be okay. And also, here's the other factor. So with Christmas coming around, my girlfriend Emily and I had plans to go out, get on a plane and to visit her family in a different state. Been planning this with her family for, a few months, before, because we're planning for the holiday. We were planning Christmas Eve, we were spend with my family, and then Christmas Day, we get on the plane and spend, a few days with her family. So there was this urgency of like, okay, I don't want to get on a plane without having my booster. I still got a couple of days. If I feel sore before getting on the plane, it should be all right. I started feeling better from the cold, but I still wasn't over. I don't know. Just something inside of me felt like, this. I'm not completely, I'm still exhausted. I'm getting chills. I hated that. After I got my booster, I started to feel as if the symptoms that I had before had ramped up. Everything except vomiting and diarrhea on that list. I was experiencing. So I decided on Christmas Eve that I would go. You wait because you're not sure, and you wait because you think it'll get better, and then you wait, and then you find out it's gonna be Christmas Eve tomorrow. Are places open? Are you gonna be able to get this and this? So you're like you're on the phone, you're on the online. And you're looking up for options. Found out that my clinic was open. The clinic that I go to was open on Christmas Eve. So my reserve, I talked to the nurse, and she said, yeah, urgent care is open. You can just, need an appointment, just go. So I went, and the doctor saw me. All my vitals and temperature and all that was normal. You're a healthy person. Would you like to, get the COVID test? And I said, yeah, for sure. The doctor said that as long as the test was negative, I should be fine to get on the plane. Now, they weren't sure if the results were going to come in on time. That's when the difficult decision had to be made. So what happened was, after I went to the clinic, I think I went to Walgreens, and I went to those, got one of those behind the counters COVID tests. And I came home and I did the test, the rapid test on my own, and it tested positive. Me not being very suave in the medical field, I wasn't sure if that test was accurate. It had a chance. On the test, it said either you get the stripes, kind of like a pregnancy test. Not that I've ever been pregnant, but I know about those tests. You get the 2 stripes, and your COVID, you tested positive for the strain, the exposure. You get 1 color stripe. I think it was blue. Then you tested negative. You get a red 1 stripe. That means that the test is invalid. And I got the 2 stripes. So I figured, if it was invalid, I'd get that 1 stripe. But I was still hoping that I'd get the results from my clinic. But I called up Emily, and I said, hey, this is the situation. And then I just, inside, I felt horrible. Right away, Emily and I talked about it, and she talked to her family, and I talked to my family, and everything was cool. But, inside, just to be honest, I felt like an idiot. I felt like I ruined the holidays. I ruined the opportunity for my girlfriend to reconnect with her family and everything that we planned, and the thing is like, when you think about it, it's not just the responsibilities or the things that you've done that led up to that day, right? When you're planning like holidays, there's a lot of stuff that people do to prepare. But also, it's the stuff that on the other side, like her family, had bought groceries and gotten things ready for us. And I just felt like I let people down. And I let myself down. And I just felt really bad, and upset. Because when people think of the holidays and you think of winter break, whether it's from work, whether it's from school, it's a time to relax. It's a time to enjoy. It's a time to give your body, your mind, your soul a rest, and be surrounded by people you love, and do things that to enjoy life. And I just hated the idea of being in quarantine again. I just felt like a disappointment to mainly myself. And I apologized to Emily. And here's the thing that's very important for you listeners. As disappointing as not being able to spend holidays with your family and your loved ones is, and not being able to do things, like have fun, and the more important thing is our health. That's the most important thing. Even though our minds may make excuses, may want to rationalize with like, oh, I wish I did this, and if I had done this, then this, or this sucks that this happened, and I just feel like a downer, like a loser. The reality is that the truth is please don't. I was extremely encouraged by Emily, on the phone with her as she was, making changes, with her family, and dealing with the airlines, bless her heart. And at the same time, realizing that because we spent time together, it's probably
good for her to get tested and also to find out if she was exposed or not, or and also that that would mean that she would have to quarantine, which I really wanted to share this topic because we spend so much time learning how to adapt, how to live in quarantine when the world was unsafe to go out. And so that was one transition. But then when things started opening up, that was like another transition. We had to learn how to adapt to this quote unquote new world that part of it existed in what we knew, what we once knew. And then part of it is this newer thing that we're learning. And also, in addition to what we're learning and what we've learned, things still being uncertain and things still not knowing what to do. I feel grateful that I have such an incredible person in my life with Emily, and how her heart is really loving and compassion and caring, just a caring soul, recognizing that it's not a big deal. It feels like a big deal, but what's more important is that we take care of our health. And I think what's kind of cool about when you decide that you're going to take care of yourself, you also realize that you're helping keep others safe too, which should go hand in hand, right? But they don't always do. I'm also grateful for Emily's family because right away they understood the situation, and none of them ever made me feel guilty or bad. It was more like support. My family, bless their heart, they were very supportive, and right away my sister, my brother, my mom and dad were like, what do you need? What can we get you? I got used to being in quarantine. When I was in LA, some of you might know the story, but 2 weeks before coming back to Minnesota, I quarantined myself in a hotel in North Hollywood because I wasn't sure if I was exposed to COVID at that time. But at that time, I wasn't feeling sick. I wasn't feeling ill. I wasn't sure. But I was able to do stuff throughout the day. I was able to exercise. I was able to eat whatever I wanted to. I was able to, I did go out a little bit because I had to get some boxes packed and that whole ordeal. And then when I came back to Minnesota, there was, the off and on of going in, quarantining and not, when things shut back down and we had to go back in and stuff like that. But even then I wasn't sick and I didn't feel ill. And I spent a lot of time, at Emily's, and even though, she was working remotely, we could still spend time together. I had that human connection and I had my health. But this time, I didn't know how to prepare for it. Above anything, it was more, I didn't know how to prepare for it mentally. Because physically, when you're sick, and especially with COVID, there's only so much you can do. There was times, where I was on the phone and I'd be checking out because my brain was foggy and, I was feeling exhausted because I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to think. But that was the plan. We were going to quarantine ourselves for the next 10 days, 7 or 10 days. I can't remember. For me, it was 10. Very grateful that Emily tested negative, but she made the choice, the safe choice to quarantine herself. In hindsight, looking back to those 10 days, it's 10 days. It's not even 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, it's not even a month. And, obviously I have to be grateful, in a selfish way for, to give gratitude for the situation that I was in, the situation that we were in versus, of course, it could have been worse. And I was reminded of that. But at one point, one of my best friends called me up, and I think it was probably like midway or something like that. And we were talking on the phone, and he called me out, and what he said to me, I didn't know I didn't know how it made me feel until afterwards. To my buddy, I'm sharing this not to say that, anything that you said was ill will or bad intentions. I know it wasn't. But I just had to be honest with what I was feeling. And afterwards I realized that, when we were talking, he said, you sound mildly depressed. The truth is that I was. And I think that we have to learn as a society to accept and to allow people to be depressed. Whether it's mild or a serious case, or like many friends that I know that are diagnosed depressed and have found ways to deal with it. Whether it's taking medicine or having certain practices and certain rituals that help them, or seeing a therapist, or whatever it is that's helping them process their condition. It was clear to me that I felt mildly depressed because there was nothing I could do about the situation. And what really bothered me was, before, when I was in quarantine, I could still do the things that I really wanted to do, that I love doing, which is focus on my self-care. I love to read. I love to practice martial arts. I love to exercise. I love to do yoga. I love to read. I already said read. Can you tell I like to read? I like to write. I like to research. I like to... I like to do painting and art, but I didn't do much of that. I haven't done much of that in a while. Training the mind, training the body, tapping into the spirit, all these things. But this time, I was happy just to not feel the symptoms that much. Not have doubt that I'm not getting better, that I might be getting worse. I had to accept that as much as I wanted to work out, even if it was like breathing exercise or yoga, although I do recommend doing light breathing exercises if your body can, even if you have to listen to your body, as my sister Janet reminded me. You have to trust your body. Definitely don't neglect it. But I do understand from friends and family that were exposed to COVID, this thing is no joke. It affects our respiratory system. It affects our lots of things. I had a different change, like whenever, like smelling. Like, I guess when they say you lose smelling, your scent, they don't just mean it's gone. They even mean that it could be replaced with something, because something happens with the again, I'm not a scientist, but something happens medically, and it affects how you smell. And I started smelling like a gasoline aroma everywhere. And the biggest test was I opened up my essential oils, and what normally would have a lovely scent, I opened it up and I smelled it, and I smelled this kind of like gasoline. It didn't help that I was also feeling bad for my girlfriend. I mean, I'm not saying that it didn't help, meaning I didn't care. I mean, because I cared, I felt helpless that I couldn't do anything. And I also felt responsible that she was in the situation because of me. Knowing her situation, she's never had to been alone in quarantine. She was either with her family members or like last year in 2020, 2020, yeah, I was with her many times. Even if I was in, the other room, or, I would come over and see her, and, we spend time together. This was her having to accept that for, X amount of days, she would be by herself. We always reminded each other, if you need anything, like, we're here for each other. I love you. And, she said, don't say sorry, but, I would say sorry. Eventually I stopped saying sorry. But I just felt really bad because I just felt like it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair for her to have to spend her holidays this way. And, I can deal with what I have to deal with, but not her. But at the same time, I think also training and practicing healthy mental health, it also meant accepting the reality of the situation. One of my biggest principles is through Buddhism, and it's about the practice of recognizing when something is an attachment, which anything can be an attachment. It's that moment when we recognize, like, oh, I'm attached to that idea, or I'm attached to that thing or that person. And the thing that's really helped me, and why I love Buddhism so much, and why I'm so grateful for my mentor for introducing Buddhism to me in such a practical, real, human way. The power of recognize when we're attached to something, an idea, or a person. It's the practice of letting go that liberates you, that saves you, that provides you with another perspective, another, as he used to say when we trained martial arts and boxing, option. I knew that the only way that I was going to heal physically, mentally, and spiritually through this was to let go of the things that I was attached to. I was attached to the idea of not being able to spend time during the holidays with my loved ones. I was attached to the idea of not being there for Emily. I was attached to the idea that maybe Emily was really struggling. Attached to the idea of, holy crap, my entire break, or our entire break, is spent in quarantine, and on day 11 is the end of the break. And for many, it's going back to work, it's going back to school. In a blink of an eye, the holiday didn't exist. And so I remember one night Emily and I talking on the phone, and I really appreciate that I can get really to the core of my being with her. And I welcome her, and I ask her to do the same since day one. We were talking about this perception of the holidays. We got to be careful, because on one end, the holidays is something really cool to be celebrated. And there's a lot of tradition. There's a lot of ritual. There's things that people do and expect. Making cookies, even decorating, or if you have a specific religious belief, that ties in, right? But isn't that feeding off subconsciously without knowing it? We've been not realizing that falling into these, what we perceive as holidays, is also falling into a perspective of, this is how holidays need to be or should be. And if it's not, something's wrong, or we're not doing something right, or we're off. And what we realized as we were talking is, we got to be careful about that, because it could slide right under us. It could like slip between the cracks of our being, of our wholeness, of what makes us incredible human beings. The holidays is a reason to spend time with your loved ones. But if you're in a situation where you can't, why can't we just be okay with that? Why can't we just accept that during these 2 weeks or a week and a half, that whole celebration should be transported every day of our life, in our souls, in how we carry ourselves. But why is it that we put so much significance around this time period? And, I really hate when people say I'm stressed about shopping for presents. Because I think that our society has fallen into this consumerism so much that we've been blinded, we've been bamboozled. If we had a Christmas, if we had a holiday, if we had a celebration without certain things, can we still say that it was just fine? Or maybe that it was more than fine? I don't have an answer. And I'm not trying to answer for anybody. But I'm sharing this because I feel like once my mind was able to be more clear about thinking, when my body felt better, when my breathing felt better, this true essence of who I am was able to provide me these little messages, these little nuggets of humanity. And it made me feel like maybe if I look at the lesson, as my mentor would say, there's lessons and blessings in everything. If I look at the lesson and the blessing of what happened, maybe it was for me to realize that I need to be careful, specifically during times of celebration or times of holidays, certain days or certain times of the year that we do certain things with each other, for each other. I needed to learn to be careful about where my perception was of it. As a kid, I loved Christmas. It was my favorite holiday. And I'm sure there's lots of kids, right, that love Christmas. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, getting presents growing up. But I think it was more just all the little things that add up to what I thought Christmas meant. And I'm not just talking about consumerism, I'm also talking about spending time with the people that you love, singing Christmas carols, eating together, all these things that are beautiful, that are also miracles of life. We shouldn't have to be attached to the idealism of what we think these days are meant to be like. I think in return, or I think instead of, what we should be doing is not having attachments to anything and learning to create our own new celebrations, forms of celebration, forms of communication, ways of being present and in the moment with each other. But again, I don't have an answer as to how or in what way, or, but I think that what happened this holiday, once I was able to detach myself from what I wanted or what I expected, or what I expected from others, or what I thought they expected of me, I came to the conclusion like Emily said, the day that I told her that our plans would have to probably change, she said, your health is the most important thing, baby. So I encourage you all to take care of yourself, to really do what needs to be done to keep your mind and body strong and healthy, which also means paying attention to the spirit. There was a night when Emily and I were talking on the phone, and I could definitely feel that both her and I were struggling with some things. And, I think it's because you can only watch so much TV before you don't want to watch TV. Now, for me, it was a little different because my body couldn't do anything and didn't want to do too much, that I was just like, I was happy watching Daredevil, eventually transitioning to the Punisher Netflix series, watching it for the second time. I wanted to make sure that I was there for her as much as I could. And I remember her calling me one night and saying, I don't have anyone that's really checking in on me. At least, and she wasn't saying this, to be mean or to make me feel bad. I think she was just, I know that she was just expressing her truth and being as transparent as she needed to be in that moment with me. But she said, you have people that are checking in on you. You have people that are asking if you need groceries. And she says, I don't. And I told her, trying to find a healthy, loving way to say this to her. I said, after listening, to what she wanted to share with me, I said, one thing that really helped me at one point, and again, I think it was something my mentor said to me, or said to a group of people. And that was, sometimes in life, if not all the time, but at least sometimes, we need to ask for what we need. I didn't want to challenge Emily in a way that would make her feel not loved, not cared for, not being listened to. But I wanted to challenge her to recognize that if you need to talk to someone, if you want someone to check in on you, sometimes we have to go find those people and take the chance, take the risk, and simply ask them, I'm going through something right now. Are you willing and wanting to be there for me? If you don't, that's completely fine. That's your choice. But if you do, I could surely use that right now. And this is something that I realize how important it is, especially when we're in situations of feeling helpless, even bored, or feeling unsure. I want to share this with you listeners because I think it's so important for us to not put it on ourselves that there's not someone out there that wants to help us, that wants to support us, that wants to provide for us certain needs. If we don't tell people, if we don't let people know what we need, we also can't expect them to provide it for us. I do believe, though, that once you express genuinely, honestly, how you're feeling and what you need, and you get the response that you get, for better or for worse, that this is how this person feels about you at this moment. And then you have to decide for yourself, does this person bring value in my life? Or is this person hurting me more? I wanted the listeners, those of you that might be have gotten through the same thing or similar thing during the holidays, I wanted to share this with you because specifically to you, because I want you to know that you're not alone. I got to tell you, when I heard stories, or read articles about, that this wasn't a specific case this holiday. The not the Omarion. I saw a TikTok video about the Omarion variant, Omicron variant. And I don't mean to scare people, but we got to be real with it. We got to look at that white elephant in the room. I mean, not white elephant. We got to look at the elephant in the room. There's a chance that you're going to get exposed. There's a chance that whether you're vaccinated or not, booster shot or not, you will eventually get exposed to COVID. But don't be afraid. You can get through it. You will. Stay positive. As my friend who got COVID early on made a YouTube video, then they asked her at the end, what was the one thing that saved you? She said, stay positive. On those darkest days, on those difficult times, it is my hope from the bottom of my heart that you will be all right. But I can't guarantee that, right? It would be silly for me to talk about this and knowing so many people's lives have been gone. And I'm not saying this to make friends and family members of loved ones that has happened to. I'm not making light of any of that situation. I just want to be real as I can about this topic. Whether you're in the situation or not, whether you have to quarantine, just know you are not alone. And you need to let people know what you need if you're not getting it. For me, I knew, like, the first time I didn't call my best friends, my mentor, and tell them about it, because it's not that I don't want to. It's just I physically didn't have the energy to do anything more than just get up and make sure that I'm eating the right foods. Lots of broth, lots of soup, lots of broth. Really helpful. I just watched TV and I just told myself, this will eventually end. And when you come out of this, you will be a little bit more knowledgeable than you were before. You would have learned something. You would have gained something. You would have lost something too, but you would have gained something. And that's where we're at. So I guess that's what this was all about, was me wanting to share with you. If you're still listening, thank you. If you're still watching, thank you. If you watch this later, thank you. What matters more to me is that there are people who need to hear what I'm sharing. And if you want to share back, please do. If you want to have a discussion, let's do it. But please, let's keep the comments positive, healthy, respectful. That's all I ask. Of course, I do want you to follow the podcast, follow what I'm doing. It just makes what I'm doing have that much more meaning behind it. And it also encourages me to keep doing it. But I'm going to keep doing it because I enjoy it. And I'm even creating a class teaching podcasts. Before I go, I just want to say one more time, thank you to everyone that has been very supportive during this time. Emily, there is no one else that I would have wanted to have gone through this with, even though we didn't go through it like physically together, right? But like our souls and spirits aligned like they always do. Your family, my family, my siblings that and my parents that brought me groceries, my brother that, you know, sent very encouraging words to both Emily and me, friends, family, friends that called me just to check in, even friends that I know once you find out that this happened, please understand that I would have wanted to tell you, but I just didn't have the energy. I was thinking about you the whole time, and I love you. To my coworkers who have been, you know, supportive, and all of you listeners, thank you for believing in the work that I do and believing in the person that I am, and all the support and love, and much love and gratitude to you all. And I encourage and hope you will share your stories, tell your stories, express your stories, and share them with me. There's a lot shared here, and I hope you enjoy it. You are loved. You are enough. You are worthy. Thanks, everyone. Take care of yourself. Be safe. And if there's anything I can do, please give me a shout. All right. Peace and love.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. And remember, you are loved, you are enough, and you are worthy. Blessings to all of you.